Hey guys, Chris with Manitoba Wildlife Federation. We're out here north of Winnipeg looking for geese. We're taking part in the spring conservation Canada Goose season, and we got up early this morning. We're out scouting, and we found a few in this large wetland complex. So first thing in the morning when you go out scouting, hit those large wetlands, hit any place that you can find some open water at, and then follow those geese to any of the agricultural fields that they may be feeding in or wherever they're going. Watch them first thing in the morning, and as they're transitioning into those feeding areas, find the landowner, get permission, and then hopefully you can get yourself set up for a hunt. So the geese are just starting to wake up now. They're starting to move out to the fields, so we're going to continue doing some scouting and see if we can find which field they're going into. So we'll see you in a few minutes. Well, we've been driving around for the last hour or two, watching the birds get off the water. Most of the water is still frozen, but they're still going back there to roost. So we've been scouting quite a bit, driving these back roads, looking for geese, looking for movement. We've actually lucked out. We found some birds on a field, in a wheat field. So we've just been kind of watching them the last few minutes and checking them out, watching the flight coming to and from the marsh and the water bodies to the field. So our next step is to actually phone the landowner and get permission, because this is private property. We do have to get permission, landowner's permission. So that's our next step. I have to check the landowner's map, find out who owns this property, and then give the farmer a call. We just talked to the landowner, and he was actually nice enough to give us permission to go hunting on this property tomorrow. So we will see you early tomorrow morning, well before daylight, and we're going to be setting up an A-frame with some decoys and hopefully have some success tomorrow morning. So we can put the blind there, offset it, kind of going that way, and then have our decoys coming, but have them really heavy on this side. And
yeah.
then just kind of have a line just on this side.
Don't give them a choice, and we're going to shoot. So they're going to come in.
Yeah, and they should be coming from this direction. So
Okay.
They should be coming,
So they come, oh, sweet.
yeah.
Okay.
And yesterday they were kind of following the creek. So
Chris
it's
has
like
it
a
all
highway.
figured out.
Got it. Trust him. I follow you blindly.
Ready? Yeah. Let's take them.
Nice.
Yeah!
I totally got that too. Wait, what just happened?
Wait.
Hey guys, it's Chris and Carly from Manitoba Wildlife Federation. We went out scouting yesterday, we found our field, we found a spot to go. So we set up early this morning, got here well before sunlight, and set up our decoy spread, and got our blind brushed up, and we had our morning hunt, and it was absolutely amazing. As you can tell, it's really windy, and especially when hunting waterfowl, wind is your friend. So it worked to our advantage. So we just want to talk a little bit about what we did and how we set up. So if you just look at our decoy spread, there's not a lot of decoys out, and we didn't need a lot. We put out a couple dozen, and that's all we really needed. We have a couple silo socks, add movement, and a few shells, and that's really basically about it. Through scouting and observing this field, which is the key to being successful, I've noticed that the birds were staging in the large wetland complex off to the east of us, and we have this really cool little creek here. And what they were doing is flying that wetland complex and following this creek to a wheat field. So we're basically trafficking geese. And with this wind, I figured that it would work really well for us to be able to traffic those birds. They would fly along the ditch, along the creek, and they would come right into the decoys. And that's actually exactly what they did. And especially with this wind, it keeps them moving and it kept them low. So we had a lot of success. We got 7 or 8 geese this morning, so super successful morning. Really happy with the results, but it really goes to show you that scouting is paramount. Doing your homework before the hunt. And you don't need a ton of decoys. You don't need to spend a bunch of money to be successful. Be where the geese want to be.
Okay, so this blind is called an A-frame blind. We did a little prep work in the beginning prior to the hunt just to save some time this morning, but what's best of these A-frame blinds is if you can do bundles of willow branches and natural grass beforehand. If you're out in a bare field, cutting stuff like this and placing it around the blind to conceal that kind of square shape and making it more look like a bluff in the middle of a bare field is a great way to use these blinds. Another great way is if you're in a field with a bunch of hay bales, you can tuck it into the hay bales to kind of conceal it to look like a hay bale. But it's super important. Concealment is really important, and the hiding factor is really important. So you notice we had face masks on, obviously for COVID, but also because you don't want the geese to see your face. But it's the same with a blind. You want to blend it in as much as possible. We cut down a bunch of the grass this morning and tucked it into the loops all around the blind. A-frame's my favorite. Like I have the layout blinds. I think the geese are catching on. They're hard to hide in a bare field, and they're hard to shoot out of. Yeah. I like it's a different feeling sitting up and shooting versus standing up and shooting, and especially for newbies. Yeah.
Or even those with maybe some mobility issues.
Oh,
you know,
exactly.
You could easily put a person, if they have some mobility issues, if they're in a wheelchair and they're wanting to try hunting, great opportunity for them to shoot out of these A-frames. So.
And you can leave the veg tucked in, take the poles out, roll it up with the veg, so that next time when you go out, you have a little bit of the cover already in there and save some time in the morning again.
Absolutely. So this morning when we were hunting, we weren't doing a lot of calling. We did a little bit, but not a ton. With the wind, the amount of wind it was blowing, the geese most likely wouldn't have heard it anyways. And really one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make while hunting waterfowl is they overcall. For us in Manitoba, in the fall time especially, early season birds aren't really calling that much. In the springtime, there is a little bit more activity, a little bit more calling. So it certainly helps, but I would stress, don't overcall. Do a few honks, a few clucks, maybe some double clucks, some murmurs. If you're a goose caller, you know what those are. If you don't, you can look up those types of calls on YouTube. But sometimes less is more. Don't blow them out. Take a little bit of calling just to entice them in, and once they start coming into your decoys, put down the calls. What I was using more today was a flag. Adds movement, it attracts the birds. Birds will see movement before they hear your calling. So when the birds were out a long distance away, I was using the flag just to get their attention, flapping that to grab their attention, and it certainly seemed to work. We had a number of groups that after calling actually cupped into the decoys and came right in, and we were able to make, take a few opportunities to get some shooting. Biggest thing is to read the birds, see what they're doing. If the calling is flaring them, stop the calling. If the flagging is flaring them, don't flag as much. So just read the birds. If they're coming in, keep doing what you're doing. If they're not coming in, try something else.
Yeah, so you don't even have to take the feathers off.
No?
No, and this is the best part because feathers are messy and they get stuck everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So you can get your, and geese are tougher than ducks. Like ducks, you can literally do this with your hands.
Yeah, really?
But for a goose, I'm just gonna cut. So you just cut a little hole there, and see once you get your thumb in there,
Yeah.
you literally just rip it open.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What?
And then you can expose that entire chest cavity. And then you peel it right down so you can see the entire thing. And there's the keel.
Yeah.
So that main keel runs all the way down, and then the breast plates are underneath the breast meat, right? So so your guide is the keel, and your knife goes right down until it hits the breastplate.
Right alongside.
Right alongside. So you do on each side, but you start on one side, and you just follow the keel right down.
Yeah.
Until you hit the plate. Like now I'm on bone.
Yeah.
And you're pretty much taking off a piece of meat just like you would take off a fillet. Like your knife is guided by the plate underneath. But like the collarbone up here is your other guide, right? So you just follow that collarbone or wishbone or whatever anybody wants to call it.
So that is super simple.
It's so simple.
Like the breast.
It's
removal.
so simple, yeah. And like these big guys, you have to cut, but when you get into smaller birds like, smaller ducks like teal and when mallards are really fresh, like you can literally almost take this off with your hands. Once you mark that first cut, you can kind of maneuver it, but that's huge.
It is huge.
I take all the sinew, all the skin, sinew, fat off. That's where a lot of the gamey taste is held. So I would remove all of this before I eat it, and we can do that before we cook this. But and then the best thing to do with game birds is before you put them in the freezer. Like if you're not going to eat them right away, put them in your sink with some coarse salt or even salt. And just let them sit in there, and you can rub your fingers over them and clean them up really good and really try and get the blood clots out.
Okay.
And then
for how long?
No, you don't have to put them in there for long, like 20 minutes.
Oh no, okay. Nice.
And just before you put them in the freezer packs, and then when you go to eat them, they're nice and clean and perfect and trimmed up. Yeah, but totally remove all of that.
Yeah.
That's where all the gamey taste lies.
Was that you normally prepare duck?
I don't even cut them like this with duck.
No.
Just slap it in there, yeah. So I think when you're this is good for anything, but when you just kind of flatten it out and tenderize it a little bit, make them kind of even so that they cook easily too, evenly.
What seasoning is that?
Powder.
Garlic powder? Well, this is exciting.
You can flip them in probably less than a minute, Chris. So you want to cook goose medium rare.
Medium rare?
Yeah, pinky red in the middle.